My name is Evelyn Margaret Carter. I am 71 years old. And on the night I learned that my best friend Anna had a secret child, I discovered something even more frightening. The person I had spent 40 years trying to forgive might not have been the person I should have blamed. George Miller stood in the darkness of the old school hallway. His face looked older than I remembered. His hands trembled. And yet his eyes were exactly the same. The same eyes I had seen every morning when I was 19. The same eyes that had watched Anna leave town. The same eyes that had watched my father disappear. And now those eyes were filled with something I had never seen in them before. Fear. Real fear. Not guilt. Not sadness. Fear. I looked at him. George. He swallowed. You asked me to tell you everything. I did. He looked at Claire. Then back at me. Then we need to leave. Where? The cemetery. Claire stepped forward. You said my mother had another child. George nodded. She did. Who? George closed his eyes. I don't know where she is now. Claire's voice broke. But you know who she is. George opened his eyes. Yes. Then tell us. He hesitated. The name she was given was not the name Anna chose. My heart began pounding. What does that mean? It means the child was taken from Anna. Claire covered her mouth. No. George looked at her. I'm sorry. No, Claire repeated. My mother would never have given away her child. I know. Then who took her? George looked at me. And for the first time that night, I understood why he had been afraid to speak. Your father. I stepped backward. No. Evelyn. No. I shook my head. My father would never do that. George's voice became softer. He believed he was saving her. Saving who? The baby. I stared at him. From Robert. George nodded. But Robert wasn't the only danger. He looked toward the dark windows. There was someone else. Who? George whispered. Thomas Bell. Claire froze. My father. George nodded. Your biological father knew about the child. Claire's face went pale. My father died before I was born. George didn't answer. Claire stepped closer. Did he? Silence. Then George said. That is what Anna wanted everyone to believe. The cemetery. We drove through the empty streets without speaking. The cemetery was on the edge of town. I hadn't been there in years. The gates were old. The iron was covered with rust. The trees moved in the cold night wind. George parked beside the chapel. Nobody moved. Finally, Claire opened her door. I followed. The three of us walked between rows of graves. George carried a small flashlight. I could hear gravel beneath my shoes. Every step felt heavier than the one before it. Finally, George stopped. He pointed toward a small section behind the chapel. There. I looked at the stone. At first, I didn't understand. It was a child's grave. The name on it was Mary Elizabeth Miller. Born August 17, 1974. Died August 19, 1974. I stared at the dates. My breath stopped. 2 days. George nodded. She lived for 2 days. Claire began crying. That's impossible. I looked at her. What? My mother told me I was her only child. George looked away. Claire knelt beside the grave. Why would she have another baby and never tell me? I couldn't answer. Then I noticed something. The grave didn't look old. Not completely. There were fresh flowers. White roses. Claire touched them. Who brought these? George didn't respond. I looked at him. George. He sighed. Someone still visits this grave. Who? He whispered. Your mother's sister. I stared at him. Anna had a sister? George nodded. Her name was Rose. I felt dizzy. Why have I never heard of her? Because Rose disappeared too. Rose Bell. The next morning, George took us to a small house outside town. A woman in her 70s opened the door. She looked at George, then at me, then at Claire. She didn't say anything. Her eyes filled with tears. I knew immediately. Rose. She nodded. I stepped forward. I'm Evelyn. I know. Her voice was barely audible. Anna's friend. Yes. She looked at Claire. And this is her daughter. Claire nodded. Rose opened the door. Come inside. Her house smelled like old books and lavender. Photographs covered the walls. There were pictures of children, families, holidays. But one photograph stopped me. Anna. She was 20 years old. She was holding a baby. I walked toward it. That's Mary. Rose nodded. Claire stared at the picture. That's my sister. Yes. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Why didn't my mother tell me? Rose looked at me. Because your mother believed you were safer not knowing. I sat down. That sentence again. The same sentence. My father had said it. My mother had said it. Anna had lived by it. And now Rose was saying it. I was beginning to hate those words. Tell us everything. Rose sat across from us. Anna became pregnant shortly before she left town. Claire looked shocked. With my father? Rose shook her head. No. Silence. Claire whispered. Then who? Rose looked at me. That is the part your father tried to hide. My father. Your father knew who the child's father was. I leaned forward. Who? Rose took a long breath. Samuel Reed. The room became silent. I stared at her. Samuel. She nodded. Your history teacher. I remembered him. His kindness. His warnings. His disappearance. His little boy, Ben. His wife, Nora. I whispered. Anna loved Samuel. Rose nodded. They were going to leave together. Claire looked confused. But my mother married someone else. She never married Thomas. I looked at Claire. Then. Rose finished the sentence. Thomas Bell wasn't your biological father. Claire closed her eyes. Her entire life had just shifted beneath her. The truth about Thomas. Rose brought out an old envelope. Inside was a birth certificate. Claire took it. Her hands shook. The father's name had been left blank. The mother's name was Anna Bell. Claire stared at it. Why was my father's name blank? Rose said. Because Anna refused to put Samuel's name on it. Why? Because Samuel was already married. Claire looked at me. I understood immediately. Anna hadn't wanted to destroy another family. She had chosen silence. But then something happened. Samuel's wife, Nora, discovered the pregnancy. And she confronted Anna. Not with anger. With fear. Because Nora knew something about Samuel. Something none of us had known. Samuel had been investigating Robert Hayes. He had discovered the financial records. He knew about the stolen money. He knew about the threats. And he knew that Robert was using people inside the town to protect himself. One of those people was George. Another was my father. And the third, Rose looked at me, was Thomas Bell. I felt sick. Thomas was working for Robert. Yes. Claire stood. My father was a criminal? Rose shook her head. Not exactly. Then what? He was afraid. Again. That word. Fear. Everyone had been afraid. Everyone had made choices because of fear. But somehow, Anna had paid the greatest price. The night the baby disappeared. Rose told us what happened on August 17, 1974. Anna had gone into labor early. The baby was born at a small clinic outside town. A girl. Mary Elizabeth. She was weak, but alive. Anna held her for 2 days. Then Robert found out. He wanted the documents Anna had taken. He wanted the names. He wanted the evidence destroyed. Anna refused. So my father made a decision. He took the baby. Not because he hated Anna. Because he believed Robert would kill her if he knew where the child was. My father arranged for the baby to be placed with another family. A family far away. A family that could keep her safe. But there was one problem. The family believed the child was an orphan. They didn't know who she really was. Anna was told her baby had died. And Anna believed it. For 40 years. I covered my mouth. Who told her? Rose whispered. Your father. I began crying. My father lied to Anna. Yes. Why? Because Robert was watching. Claire looked at Rose. What happened to my sister? Rose shook her head. I don't know. George had told us she was buried under another name. But now I realized something. The grave wasn't Mary's grave. It was a grave created to make everyone believe she was dead. A false grave. A false name. A false death. And somewhere, Mary had grown up believing she was someone else. The woman in the blue coat. Rose went upstairs. When she returned, she carried another box. This was Anna's. She opened it. Inside were letters, photographs, a necklace, and one photograph of a young woman. She was perhaps 25. She had brown hair, green eyes, a small scar above her left eyebrow. I stared at the photograph. My hands began shaking. Who is she? Rose whispered. Mary. Claire stared. That's my sister. Yes. When was this taken? 1999. I looked at the photograph again. There was something familiar about her. Something I couldn't explain. Then I noticed the necklace. A small silver heart. I remembered it. Anna had worn the matching half. I whispered. Where is she? Rose hesitated. That is what we don't know. Claire looked at her. She's alive. Rose nodded. The last person who saw her said she was alive. When? 6 years ago. My heart jumped. Where? Rose gave us an address. A small town in Pennsylvania. I looked at Claire. We're going. Pennsylvania. We left Ohio the next morning. This time, I drove. Claire sat beside me. 4 hours. Neither of us spoke. Finally she said, Evelyn. Yes. Do you think she knows about us? I don't know. Do you think she knows Mom was her mother? I don't know. She looked out the window. What if she hates us? I reached for her hand. Then we'll give her time. What if she doesn't want to meet us? Then we'll respect that. She looked at me. And what if she does? I smiled sadly. Then we'll finally stop wondering. We arrived in Pennsylvania just before sunset. The address led us to a small nursing home. I looked at Claire. Are you sure? She nodded. We entered. A receptionist looked up. Can I help you? I gave her the name. Mary Elizabeth Miller. The receptionist typed. Then stopped. She looked at us. I'm sorry. My heart dropped. She's not here. The woman shook her head. She was. When? She left 3 years ago. Where did she go? The receptionist looked uncomfortable. I can't give out personal information. Claire pulled out the photograph. Please. The receptionist looked at it. Her expression changed. I remember her. Where did she go? The woman whispered. She went back to Ohio. My heart stopped. Why? The receptionist looked at me. She said she had found her family. The name on the letter. Back at the hotel, We searched through every document Rose had given us. Finally, Claire found something. A letter. It was addressed to Mary. The sender's name was Eleanor Carter. I froze. Carter. Claire looked at me. Who is Eleanor Carter? I couldn't answer. There had never been an Eleanor Carter in my immediate family. Then I remembered something. My father's sister. My Aunt Eleanor. She had died before I was born. Or at least, that was what I had always been told. I picked up the letter. The handwriting was unfamiliar. The envelope had never been opened. Inside was one sentence. Mary, your father kept you hidden, but your sister Evelyn deserves to know the truth. My sister? I stared at the words. Not Anna's daughter. Not Claire's sister. Mine. I looked at Claire. What if? She shook her head. No. But what if Mary wasn't Anna's only secret? My father's second family. We went back to Ohio. Rose was waiting for us. When I showed her the letter, she became silent. You knew. She nodded. Knew what? Your father had another family. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Where? Indiana. How long? Almost 20 years. I sat down. My father had lived 2 lives. He had a family with my mother. And another family somewhere else. A daughter named Eleanor. A granddaughter named Mary. And somehow, Anna's baby had been connected to them. Rose finally explained. After my father took Mary's baby away from Anna, he didn't send her directly to the family who adopted her. He sent her to his sister Eleanor. Eleanor raised Mary for several years. Then, when Eleanor became ill, Mary was adopted by another family. She grew up, married, had children, and spent her entire life believing her biological parents were dead. But there was one person who knew the truth. My father. He had visited Mary several times. Secretly. And every time he visited, he used a different name. Until one day, Mary recognized him. She discovered everything. And she began searching for Anna. The last conversation. Anna found out Mary was alive. That was why she returned to Ohio. That was why she had begun writing letters. That was why she had recorded the cassette. She wanted the truth to come out. But she died before she could tell Claire. I closed my eyes. For 40 years, I had believed Anna abandoned us. But Anna had spent 40 years trying to return. I cried. I should have looked for her. Claire put her hand on my shoulder. You didn't know. But I should have known. No. She shook her head. You were 19. I looked at her. Sometimes I forget how young I was. So does everyone. She smiled sadly. You were a girl who promised her friend she would become a teacher. I remembered. The train. The rain. Anna's face through the window. Her final words. Promise me you'll help children. I had kept that promise. But I had broken another. I had never looked for her. The call. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello. A woman's voice said. Evelyn. My heart stopped. Yes. There was silence. Then. My name is Mary. I couldn't speak. Claire grabbed my hand. The voice continued. I've been looking for you. Tears filled my eyes. Where are you? I don't know if I should tell you. Please. Silence. Then she said. I'm afraid. I closed my eyes. Of what? Of the same person my mother was afraid of. My blood ran cold. Robert Hayes. She laughed softly. No. Then who? Her voice became a whisper. Your father. I froze. My father is dead. I know. Then why are you afraid of him? Because he left instructions. What instructions? She hesitated. If anyone ever discovers the truth about me. She stopped. Yes. They will come looking for me. I looked at Claire. Who? Mary whispered. The people who were responsible for my mother's disappearance. I felt a chill. Mary, where are you? She finally answered. I'm in Ohio. My heart jumped. Where? She gave me an address. Then said, Evelyn. Yes. Don't come alone. The call ended. The empty house. The address was an old farmhouse outside town. Claire and I arrived just after midnight. The front door was open. No lights. No car. No sound. Mary. Nothing. We entered. The house was empty. But someone had been there. There were fresh footprints near the back door. A chair had been knocked over. A cup of tea sat on the table. Still warm. Claire whispered. Someone was here. I nodded. Then I saw something on the wall. A photograph. Anna, Mary, Claire, and me. All four of us. But the photograph had been taken recently. I stepped closer. How? Claire looked at the picture. Someone must have put these together. Behind the photograph was a note. I pulled it out. There were only 7 words. You were never supposed to find her. I felt the old fear return. The same fear from 1974. The same feeling that someone was watching. Then we heard a car. Headlights swept across the windows. Claire grabbed my arm. Someone was coming. The front door opened. A man walked inside. He was tall, gray-haired, wearing a dark coat. He looked at me. I knew him. I had seen him at my wedding, at my father's funeral, at family dinners. He had held my children's hands. He had sat beside me when Michael died. I whispered, "No." Claire looked at me. "Who is he?" I couldn't answer. The man smiled. "Evelyn." I stared at him. "You." He stepped closer. "I told you once never to ask questions about Anna." My body went cold. I remembered his voice. 40 years earlier. The same voice. The same warning. I finally understood. The man who had been standing in the background of my entire life was George Miller's brother, Richard Miller. But Richard was not supposed to be alive. He had disappeared in 1975. The same year Mary disappeared. The same year Thomas Bell disappeared. The same year my father stopped speaking about Anna. I looked at him. "Where is Mary?" Richard smiled. "Safe." "Where?" "Somewhere you will never find her." Claire stepped forward. "You don't get to decide that anymore." Richard looked at her. "You have no idea what your mother started." "Then tell us." Richard laughed. "Your mother didn't start anything." He looked at me. "Your father did." What my father really did. Richard finally told us the truth. My father had discovered Robert's crimes. He had also discovered that Thomas Bell was helping Robert. Samuel Reed was trying to expose them. Anna knew too much. Mary became leverage. Robert wanted the evidence. Thomas wanted to save himself. George wanted to disappear. And my father wanted to protect me. But my father made one terrible mistake. He trusted Richard. Richard promised to hide Mary. Instead, he used her existence as a bargaining chip. He threatened my father. If my father went to the police, Mary would disappear forever. So my father stayed silent. Anna never knew the full truth. She believed Mary had died. Samuel disappeared. Thomas disappeared. Robert eventually left town. And Richard lived quietly for decades. But he never forgot the secret. Neither did Mary. She eventually discovered who she was. And she began searching. That was when Richard became afraid. Because Mary had something he didn't know about. Evidence. A recording. A recording Anna had made before she died. A recording that could prove everything. The recording. Richard took a small device from his pocket. He pressed play. Anna's voice filled the room. Older. Weaker. But unmistakable. Evelyn. I began crying. If you're hearing this, then you've found Mary. Claire covered her mouth. Anna continued. I need you to understand something. A pause. I never blamed you. My tears fell. I never blamed your father either. I looked at Richard. He made mistakes. Anna's voice trembled. But he was trying to protect his daughter. I closed my eyes. Then Anna said something that shocked me. Not Claire. I opened my eyes. Mary. Silence. Mary was never the daughter who needed saving. My heart stopped. Claire was. Claire looked at me. What does that mean? Anna continued. Because Claire was never supposed to know who her father was. Richard stopped the recording. Why? Claire demanded. He looked at her. Because your father wasn't Thomas. Claire stared at him. Then who? Richard said. Samuel Reed. The room became silent. Claire began crying. Why did everyone lie to me? Richard looked at me. Because Samuel was murdered. I felt my knees weaken. What? Richard nodded. Robert had him killed. Claire covered her face. Her entire life had been built on a lie. Her father had not abandoned her. He had died protecting her. Anna had not abandoned her. She had spent her life protecting her. And my father had spent his life trying to keep everyone alive. I finally understood. There had been no villain who simply wanted money. There had been people making terrible choices. People who were afraid. People who loved badly. People who believed silence was protection. And the cost had been enormous. The woman who walked through the door. The door opened. Everyone turned. A woman stood there. She was about 60 years old. Gray-brown hair. Green eyes. A small scar above her left eyebrow. She looked at Claire. Then at me. Her eyes filled with tears. Mom. Claire whispered. The woman shook her head. No. Then she looked at me. I was waiting for you. I knew immediately. Mary. Anna's first daughter. The child we had believed was dead. The child hidden for 40 years. She walked toward us. And when she stood in front of me, she held out her hand. I'm Mary Elizabeth. I took her hand. My name is Evelyn. She smiled through her tears. I know. Then she hugged me. I held her like I had held Anna 40 years earlier. And for a moment, I was 19 again, standing at the train station, watching my best friend leave. Except this time, someone had come home. The letter from Anna. Mary carried one final envelope. It was for you. I recognized Anna's handwriting immediately. My hands shook. I opened it. The letter was short. Evelyn, if Mary ever finds you, please don't spend your life blaming yourself. You were my friend. You were never my enemy. The world took many things from us. But it never took our friendship. I wanted you to know that I became a mother twice. Claire taught me courage. Mary taught me hope. And you taught me that a person can survive almost anything if someone believes in them. You kept your promise. You became a teacher. Now teach them one last lesson. Tell them that secrets do not protect people forever. Tell them that fear should never make our choices for us. And tell them, I never stopped loving you. Anna. I couldn't see the page through my tears. Mary stood beside me. Claire stood on the other side. 3 women. 3 generations of secrets. And one friendship that had survived 40 years. The final choice. Richard was arrested. George gave his statement. Rose handed over the remaining documents. The old records were reopened. Samuel's death was investigated. Robert Hayes was already dead. Thomas Bell's disappearance was finally explained. And my father's name was cleared of the worst thing we had believed about him. But not everything he had done was forgiven. He had lied. He had hidden Mary. He had allowed Anna to believe her child was dead. He had made choices for people who deserved the right to choose for themselves. Love could explain his actions. But love could not erase the damage. I understood that now. Forgiveness didn't mean saying, "You did nothing wrong." It meant saying, "You were human." And sometimes, being human meant hurting people even while trying to save them. 40 years later, 3 months after the truth came out, Mary came to my house. She brought flowers. Claire came too. We sat in the kitchen. I made coffee. For the first time in 43 years. I poured 3 cups. 1 for me. 1 for Claire. 1 for Mary. I looked at them. Then laughed. Mary smiled. Claire started crying. "What?" I asked. Claire wiped her tears. Mom used to say she wanted to grow old in a house near the ocean. I smiled. She told me that too. Mary looked at us. "Did she tell you she was afraid of growing old?" I shook my head. "No." Mary smiled. "She was." "Of what?" "Of being forgotten." I looked at the 2 women sitting across from me. Then I understood. That was the real reason Anna had left the recordings. The letters. The photographs. The evidence. She didn't want the world to remember the crime. She wanted the people she loved to remember her. Not as the missing girl. Not as the runaway woman. Not as the victim. But as Anna. The girl who loved peach pie. The woman who wanted to teach English. The mother who loved 2 daughters. The friend who once stood beside a train and asked me to promise something. The ocean. A year later, Claire, Mary, and I traveled to the coast. Anna had always wanted to live near the ocean. We brought her ashes. The wind was cold. The sky was gray. But the water was beautiful. Claire opened the urn. Mary held my hand. Together, we released Anna into the sea. For a long time, none of us spoke. Then Mary whispered, "Do you think she knows?" I smiled. I think she always knew. Claire looked at the ocean. About us. About everything. We stood there until sunset. And I thought about the girl I had been at 19. She had believed life was simple. She had believed good people always made good choices. She had believed secrets could protect the people she loved. Now, at 71, I knew better. Life was not simple. Good people could make terrible choices. And secrets. Secrets were not walls. They were seeds. You could bury them. You could hide them. You could forget them. But one day, they would grow. And when they did, they would reach toward the light. The lesson I never taught. I returned home and opened my old classroom box. Inside were photographs from my 40 years as a teacher. Hundreds of children's faces. Graduations. Letters. Drawings. Thank you notes. One card caught my attention. It was from a student named Emily. She had written, "Mrs. Carter, you taught me that being scared doesn't mean you should stop doing the right thing." I sat there for a long time. Then I cried. Because I had taught that lesson to hundreds of children. But I had taken 71 years to learn it myself. I finally understood what Anna had wanted. Not revenge. Not punishment. Not even justice. She wanted freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from secrets. Freedom from the stories other people had written for us. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all. We don't get to choose everything that happens to us. We don't get to control what other people do. We don't get to undo the past. But we do get to decide what we do with the truth when it finally finds us. I had spent 40 years believing my story was about losing Anna. I was wrong. It was about finding her. Not in a photograph. Not in a letter. Not in an old recording. But in the two daughters she left behind. Claire. Mary. And in the part of myself that had remained 19 years old all those decades. The frightened girl who watched a train disappear. The girl who thought she had lost her best friend forever. I finally went back to her. And I told her, "You did enough. You survived. You kept your promise. And now, you can let her go." One last surprise. 6 months after Mary's return, I received an envelope. There was no return address. Inside was a photograph. It showed Anna. She was young. Maybe 20. Standing beside the river. Beside her was Samuel. And behind them was another little girl. Not Mary. Not Claire. Someone else. On the back of the photograph was a handwritten sentence. Anna had one more secret. I stared at it. My heart began beating faster. Claire was standing beside me. "What is it?" I turned the photograph over. There was another line. "The child was never buried." I looked at Mary. She slowly stood. "What child?" I didn't answer. Because somewhere inside me, I already knew. The story wasn't finished. Not completely. 40 years of lies had been uncovered. But one final truth remained buried. And this time, I wasn't afraid. I picked up my coat. Claire looked at me. "Where are we going?" I smiled. "Back to where it all started. Ohio." I shook my head. "The river." Mary grabbed her coat. "We're coming with you." I nodded. And the three of us walked toward the door. 3 women. 1 family. And one final secret. Because sometimes, the last chapter isn't the end. Sometimes, it's the door to the next story. And as I stepped outside, I looked at the evening sky and whispered, "Anna, if you're still somewhere out there in the memories of this town, I promise. This time I won't stop looking." To be continued.